Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Let's kick things off with a story about a neighbor who thought he could dictate how everyone else lived on the street until he learned the hard way that German Shepherds make excellent alarm clocks when properly motivated. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with a turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. When malicious compliance has pause. I have a neighbor, let's call him Jay, who is, let's say, an experience. He owns 4 cars, and not small, well-kept sedans either. These are loud, clunky, often half-disassembled machines that seem to rotate between being parked, washed, or endlessly worked on, always in front of his house and mine. As if that's not enough, he also owns a tow truck, which he enjoys idling right in front of my house for no apparent reason. The low rumble of that engine has become the soundtrack of my early mornings and late evenings. And when he's not fiddling with his fleet or revving up the tow truck like it's NASCAR Sunday, he's got a steady stream of visitors coming and going, all hours, all types. Let's just say the vibe is less friendly neighborhood poker night and more sketchy side street dealings. A couple of years ago, the police were at his place several times a week. That's cooled off lately, but they still make an appearance every now and then, just enough to keep the neighborhood guessing. He lives with his grandmother, who's elderly and clearly not doing well. You never see her anymore. The only time she appears is when the ambulance shows up to take her away to the hospital, and she always goes alone. So with all this noise, traffic, and general disruption, I've tried to keep to myself and mind my business. I installed a camera over my driveway, angled to capture my front door and part of the street. Given Jay's erratic behavior and history, I like the peace of mind. Then last week, Jay decided to play the friendly neighbor. I was buckling my son into the car to take him to daycare when Jay stomped across the street, acting all chummy. That was my first red flag. He never talks to me unless he wants something. "Hey man," he says with that fake grin, "can you maybe keep your dog inside in the mornings? She keeps waking me up barking before 7 a.m., and I'm just trying to get some sleep." Now, my dog is a German Shepherd. She barks, sure. She's a dog, not a potted plant. But we don't just let her howl in the wind. She's trained, and we limit it the best we can. Still, trying to avoid any unnecessary drama, I told him, sure, I'll see what I can do. But he wasn't done. Jay then points at my security camera and says, "Oh, and stop taking pictures of me in my house." I gesture up to the camera and calmly explain it's pointed at my driveway and front door, not spying on anyone. He continues, completely unfazed. "Yeah, well, stop following my wife, too. She says you followed her home more than once." At this point, I just blinked. I literally live across the street from them. Sometimes we arrive home around the same time, that's it. I don't even know what his wife looks like unless she's getting out of the car in their driveway. I told him I got better things to do than park a half-mile away just to follow someone home. So to recap, I'm not allowed to let my dog be a dog, I can't secure my property with a camera, and apparently my perfectly timed commute now qualifies as stalking. Well, fine. Instead of leaving the dog door open at night like we used to, I now lock it. In the morning, I wait exactly until 7 a.m. on the dot, and then unlock it and cheerfully call my German Shepherd to the door. "Speak," I say, and like the good girl she is, she gives it her all. Woof, woof, woof. She barks up a storm for a solid 5 minutes, tail wagging head high, a true canine chorus to kick off Jay's beauty sleep, and probably send his tow truck dreams into the ditch. The best part? She never used to make a sound in the morning. She'd just wander out, do her business, and come back in, quiet as a mouse. But now she's got purpose. Be careful what you ask for, neighbor. And our second story. Karen thought I worked at Wendy's. Got told off so hard. For context, this happened today, literally fresh off the grill. I do not, have never, and will never work at Wendy's or anywhere like it. I have worked at a similar fast food place years ago, so I know the vibe, but I had zero business being treated like an employee today. This story involves 5 people. Me, OP, Rumi, my roommate, Karen, an actual menace, Mr. Rude, a tragically bitter Wendy's employee, manager, a legend. So it's early afternoon, my roommate and I head to Wendy's to grab lunch. It was one of those days where the craving for a Baconator hits hard and nothing else will do. We get in line, waiting our turn, minding our own business. Enter Karen. Now, I'm not one to comment on appearances, but for the sake of painting the full picture, this woman was about 5 feet tall and pushing 65 pounds with the attitude of someone who believes every room owes her attention. She comes barreling through the doors and immediately beelines toward the counter. And when I say barreling, I mean she actually shoulders past my roommate and me while we're standing at the front, mid-order. No excuse me, no oops, no nothing. Before I can even say a word, the manager jumps in. Manager, ma'am, I'm going to ask you nicely to please use the register next to this one so this couple can finish ordering. Solid, professional, calm. Karen turns to look at us like we've personally insulted her ancestors and goes off. Karen, shouldn't you two be behind the counter? Why are you wasting your coworkers' time ordering food during a shift? My roommate and I both blink, me and roomie in unison. Excuse me? Do we look like we're wearing Wendy's uniforms? For the record, I'm standing there in an AC/DC t-shirt and some new camo pajama pants because, let's be honest, I was going for lunch, not a job interview. My roommate, home of the brave tee and plain old blue jeans. Karen, huffing, I don't care what you're wearing, you're clearly employees. Now get back there and help your coworkers. You can eat after your shift. At this point, I was torn between laughing and asking her if she needed her prescription checked. But again, before I could say anything, the manager steps up. Manager, firmly, ma'am, quit harassing my customers or I'll ask you to leave. But wait, it gets dumber. Enter Mr. Rude, an actual Wendy's employee with the warmth and patience of a soggy napkin. Mr. Rude to Karen, come here, I'll take your order. Instead of taking the opportunity to slink away and get her spicy nuggets in peace, Karen decides to double down. Karen to Mr. Rude, no, this isn't about who takes my order, this is about favoritism. Manager here is willing to serve his employees before actual paying customers. This is bad business. Now the manager looks like he's about 3 seconds away from throwing his name tag at the wall. Manager, I can assure you neither of these two works here, and even if they did, I would serve them over you any day. You have 5 seconds to leave or I'm calling the police. She stood there stunned, looking like someone just unplugged her power source. After a few seconds of sputtering and muttering something about reviews and corporate, she finally turned and stormed out of the restaurant without ordering anything. Cue peace and quiet. A few minutes later, when we go to pay, the manager smiles at us and says, Manager, lunch is 60% off today for not being complete idiots. And that, friends, was the best damn meal I've had in a long time. Baconator, perfect. Sour cream and chive baked potato, chef's kiss. Junior bacon cheeseburger, glorious. 6-piece chicken nuggets with ranch, a spiritual experience. And don't even get me started on the vanilla Dr. Pepper with no ice, crisp, cold, divine. We sat down to eat with Karen nowhere in sight, probably out in the parking lot angrily reviewing every Wendy's on Yelp. I was half tempted to go back and thank the manager again for standing his ground and calling out the nonsense, but honestly, that 60% discount said it all. So no, Karen, I'm not an employee. I'm just a hungry dude in pajama pants who really enjoys watching entitled people get humbled. I don't understand the mentality of thinking that everyone else is beneath you and lives to serve you. It's ridiculous. I imagine people like her wake up hating themselves every morning and think, how can I publicly humiliate myself and look like the dumbest piece of crap in town today? And our last story. Can't find me for a pool if it's a pond. My granddad's legendary compliance workaround. Not my story, but my grandfather's. This happened maybe 20 years ago in New Zealand, back when local councils decided to crack down on backyard swimming pools. A new rule came in that said every pool needed to be separately fenced, even if your entire property was already enclosed with secure gates and fencing. My grandfather, a quietly stubborn man with the patience of a monk and the sass of a retiree with time on his hands, didn't see the point. His house sat on a big rural block. The front drive had an electric gate, and the property was wrapped in tall fencing. No kids ever came over, none of the neighbors had kids, and the pool itself hadn't been used in years. It was kidney-shaped, about 10 meters long, a few meters wide, and deep enough, but it mostly just sat there, looking vaguely nostalgic. So naturally, Granddad ignored the new regulation. Fast forward 2 years, and the council started sending out compliance officers to inspect properties and threaten people with fines if they weren't towing the line. The guy who showed up to Granddad's place was the type who probably ironed his socks and fantasized about issuing parking tickets. Real clipboard energy. He strutted around like he was surveying royal grounds, spotted the unfinished pool, and started launching into the usual, "You've got 30 days or else" speech. Granddad nodded politely, didn't argue, and said he'd get it sorted. Now here's the thing. Fencing the pool wasn't a small job. Because of the curves, you couldn't use basic timber fence, and the regulations didn't allow cross beams anyway, because a child might climb it. So the only approved solution would have cost a small fortune in custom metal fencing, which seemed a bit ridiculous considering the entire property was already sealed off like Fort Knox, and no child had set foot there since the 90s. So Granddad did what any man with a shed full of tools and a grudge against petty bureaucracy would do. He turned the pool into a pond. No, really. He researched pond filtration, bought a few dozen native fish from a local aquatic store, picked up some aquatic plants and water lilies, and converted the entire pool into a functioning ornamental fish pond. The water was clear, there were rocks, lilies, a little fountain pump, the works. 31 days later, Officer Clipboard returned. He walked around to the backyard and looked confused. "The pool hasn't been fenced," he barked. Granddad raised an eyebrow, then motioned him over. "It's not a pool," he said. "It's a fish pond." The guy stared, then sputtered. "It was a pool." "Sure," said Granddad. "Now it's not." There were fish swimming lazily through lily pads. There was no ladder, no steps, no indication of recreational swimming. Granddad even had a laminated sign that read, "Private pond, no fishing," stuck in a decorative rock. The officer whipped out his phone to call someone. Granddad offered him a cup of tea while he stood there awkwardly trying to figure out how to report a compliance loophole that was annoyingly perfectly legal. You see, the regulation only applied to swimming pools. In the end, the council had to concede defeat. No fines, no fence, no further visits. Game, set, koi fish. Was it cheeky? A little. Was it unsafe? Not really. The property was still locked down tighter than a private airstrip. And if a family ever had guests with kids, I have no doubt Granddad would have taken precautions. I remember a story from a few decades ago, somewhere in the Phoenix metro area. A man was going to fill in his swimming pool because no one was using it anymore, and he was tired of taking care of it. His son pled to let the pool remain, and he'd take over the maintenance. It wasn't long before the pool looked like green soup. The thought of filling it in came up again, but instead the pool was used as a catfish farm. Once a year, the whole neighborhood would be invited over for a big fish fry. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.